Hello, Beard Wizard family. Welcome to Battle of the Beer Advent Calendars. I totally botched that intro as well, but that's what happens. This is a live review show, and sometimes we do that. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Beard Wizard Man, also known as Trevor on social media. Links to all of which you can find in that video description below, including ways to support this channel, like clicking that red subscribe button and joining the Beard Wizard family. We've reached our goal for this year, but we're pushing hard for 5,000 next year, even further if we can do it. But what is this and what are we doing? This is day 15 of Battle of the Beer Advent Calendars. It's a live review show where I pit, in this case, a German beer advent calendar versus an Illinois beer advent calendar. The German calendar is from the Kalia. It's the Kalia calendar that we get at Costco here in the States, but it is private select and breweries from all over Germany and Bavaria and that region of Europe. And they mix it up, sometimes the same stuff from year to year, but then they add some new stuff. And then the Illinois Beer Advent Calendar put together by Lodi Tap House here in Illinois. And it's a collection of craft brews and microbrews and small breweries from all over the state of Illinois. Sorry, I'm rushing a little bit. I shouldn't be. Also, I've already had a couple beers, so this is going to be an interesting evening, and we have more content to give you, so hopefully I can. This is also going to be I'm looking forward to one of the best shows, because we have two beers, two styles that I actually really like. Almost every day there's been, well, I like this one, and this one's okay, but today we have two different styles of beer that I love. And so this is gonna be a tricky one. I'm interested to get into it and see how things go. Yeah. So anyway, I like to keep this educational. So we're gonna talk about the breweries and the beer styles first, and then we'll tell you what I think. This is a non-scientific review because these are two different styles of beers. This is not, this is just me telling you what I think, and hopefully entertaining, and hopefully you learn something. If you're playing the home game, you're on day 15. Up first from Rheder Castle is the Husaren Trunk beer. Very cool can. This is a Festbier. I very much enjoy Festbiers. I like darker German beers for the most part. That's what I tend to drink. But Festbiers and Marzens and Oktoberfests, we'll get into those styles of beers, falls somewhere in the middle between a light beer and a darker beer when it comes to German beers. We'll talk about that a little bit. But that's our beer from Germany today. And from Illinois, from Art History Brewing, we have the 60 Shilling Scotch Ale. We'll talk about this Scotch ale, how it differs from other Scotch ales here in a minute, but I also really like Scotch ales. So anyway, the Rheder Castle Brewery in Germany started in 1686. The owner of Rheder Manor, Christian Falco, became Freiherr v. Mengersen, granted brewing rights by the Prince Bishop of Paderborn in 1716. His son, Burkhardus Bruno, and I'm guessing these are titles, Freiherr v. Mengersen. I don't really know those, and I should. I'm of German descent, and this is also interesting about today. I'm German Scotch. My father's side of the family, German. My mother's side of the family, Scottish. So we've got a German Festbier versus a Scotch ale. This should be a little battle of the family history, so to speak. Anyway, in 1830, the brewery expanded for the first time and converted into a steam brewery based on the Bavarian model. This means that the bottom fermented beer, which is easier to store and transport, can now be brewed. Where the Weidenpalais stands today, ice ponds were created in the first half of the 19th century to obtain ice for cooling beer in the winter. The mill from 17, there's a lot of history. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. But essentially, they have been making beer since the 1600s, early 1700s. absolutely fantastic. Now, a Festbier is not a Marzen, and it's not exactly an Oktoberfest. It is slightly different. A Festbier is usually considered a little less, a little less. It's usually a little lighter. It's usually less hoppy. It's usually a little bit cleaner when it comes to sort of the look and feel of it. It usually looks a lot like a lager. It's not nearly as dark as, say, a Marzen, or what we over here in the States would call an Oktoberfest beer. But a lot of times when you buy an Oktoberfest beer, you actually get a Fest beer and not a Marzen. So they are different, but they're very similar, very closely related. Now, art history brewing. I'm just checking to make sure everything's working. I got a ton of screens up here. So art. Oh, I just clicked off the screen. Art history brewing. Yes, I'm over 21. No, I don't want to pick up beer. Anyway, art history brewing is in Galena. Galena, right? Didn't I say it was in Galena, Illinois? Now I lost track of where the darn place is at. This is a live show, boys and girls. This is what happens when you do a live show. Geneva, Illinois. This one is actually, so I think the one we did yesterday was in Geneva, Illinois as well. This is up near Rosemont, Illinois, up by the airport. So probably not going there anytime soon. But they have been brewing beers. The idea of art history has been brewing in the back of Tom Rau's mind since the early 80s, when he began home brewing and trying traditional styles of beer at the Old Amsterdam Brew Pub in Toronto, Ontario. So the guy who started it has been sort of dabbling as a hobby brewer since the 80s. In the 90s, Tom and his wife traveled to Europe, followed the writings of the famous beer hunter Michael Jackson. That sounds fantastic, a beer hunter. I would love to tour Europe hunting beer. To immerse themselves in the history of brewing. 2018, they went to Munich, and they opened Art History Brewing in 2020. That sounds so cool. I would absolutely love to do that. Now, a Scotch ale is traditionally a dark, malty, caramely, and boozy beer. It's usually a very high alcohol content for beer anyway, and it's usually very dark. So I was kind of surprised to see that this beer is only 4.7%. Most Scotch ales that I have are really strong, and this one's not. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how these two turn out. I don't know. I had this Festbier, the German beer I actually had in last year's Advent calendar. I don't remember how I liked it. So we will see. We're going to let the Illinois beer Advent calendar go first. As you can see, it's very red. It's got a very caramel color to it, which is a little lighter than I'm used to with a Scotch ale, but it still fits that sort of caramel, rich, red, malty flavor, or at least color. It had a beautiful head on it when I poured it. It's been sitting a couple of minutes, so it has lost most of that, but it poured very nicely. It had a great pour. Smells good, smells clean. All right, cheers. That tastes delicious. That is exactly what I want from a Scotch ale. It's rich and dark, but it's not bitter. It's got a little sweetness to it. It's got that roasty smokiness that you want. It doesn't punch you in the face, though. A lot of Scotch ales you get are very strong. Like I said, they kick right away, and so this one's very light for a Scotch ale as far as the alcohol content. Super drinkable. That's delicious. I love that a lot. All right, let's clear that palate. Little crisp, clean water. All right, let's try this Festbier. Now, the Festbier is much lighter than a Marzen. Like I said, this one did pour very light. It still has most of its head on it as well, and I poured these both at the same time. So it's retained that carbonation, which if you don't know, you want carbon, well, in a carbonated beer anyway, you want that carbonation and you want the head. If you go to a lot of times you go to a bar and they give you a beer and they pour it right to the top with absolutely no head because they think you want to get the most out of what you're paying for out of that glass. That is wrong. That carbonation, that head, those bubbles, that releases the aromatics in the beer. And when you go to drink it, if anything, when you're sick and you can't smell, you can't taste very well. Your nose is a very important part of how your taste buds work, how your mouth works. And if you can't smell the beer, if you can't smell the aromatics, it's not going to taste quite the same. So it's very important that that head is there, that they pour it right, that it releases that carbonation. Otherwise, you're not getting the full experience. You're just drinking beer to ingest alcohol, and at that point, what's the point? You may as well just be drinking hard liquor at that point. Well, you should be drinking that right too. But I don't know why. I don't know why people drink just to get drunk. You should enjoy it too. So anyway, this is the Marzen, or the Festbier, sorry, and my little tangent on how to pour beer. We'll probably do something about that in the future, about how to pour beer and how to do it right and all that stuff. But anyway, Prost. That was good too. It has, though, you know what? It's got a little bit of sourness that I wasn't expecting. Very creamy feel. It's not very sharp. The carbonation is very mellow. Even though it had a good head on it and it stayed, it's not real sharp on the carbonation. Man, that's a tough call, because I'm leaning toward that Scotch ale. I love Festbiers. They're one of my favorite German beers. But this one just isn't hitting for me right now. And I think it's probably that little bit of sour note that I'm getting on the aftertaste that I don't expect from a Festbier. I don't expect it to be sour. And it's not sour like a sour, not like a sour beer or a Gose. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's hard to describe. You know what? I'm gonna give the Scotch ale one more hit. This is a very close one, by the way. That it's good. That Festbier is good. Don't get me wrong, but there's just something about it that I think is throwing me. Yeah, you know what? And the can is gorgeous too. I think we're going with Illinois taking it today. I need to go back and watch the videos now because I forgot what the score was. I think Germany's still winning, but only by a beer or two. This Scotch ale is delicious. I would definitely drink this again. I would actually drink several of these in a sitting, especially it being 4.7, because the one thing about Scotch ales is I love them, but they're strong, so I can't drink as many of them as I would like usually, because I have, by the time you get to the third or fourth one, you may as well stop because they don't taste the same. They're just not as enjoyable. You're already starting to get drunk. This one is delicious, and I love the can. Again, my Scottish ancestry calling to me with that can. That's a beautiful can. So anyway, Illinois takes it today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I will be back in just a little bit. We're going to be doing a music review as well. Tom McDonald dropped a new one tonight. We have a lot of new ones that dropped. today, and so I'm going to try to give you some streams of new music all weekend if I can, as well as day 16 tomorrow of the Battle of the Beer Advent Calendars. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate you. I'll see y'all again soon. You have a great one. Much love. Bye.